pleasant good morning, viewers. My name is Javon Wilson, joining you out of the beautiful British Virgin Islands on this Monday. Today, we get into it with Governor Augustus Jaspert. As you know, as we forge forward, many things have been on the forefront, one of them being the border security, the governor's role within that responsibility. Today, we're also speaking about constitutional review and reparations, as well as the relationship between the governor as well as the government of the British Virgin Islands. All that and so much more when 284 Media returns.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Father Jesus, that line here long like church service.
Alright, do enjoy the rest of it then. Next customer line, please. Wait, hold on a second.
Yes, Sonny boy, come, yes, son.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sonny boy. Hold on there. You must have cut front of people.
It's okay. I'll take care of it.
What? No man to take care of me.
How may I assist you? You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top of power?
Viewers, welcome back to 284 Media. Now, as you know, we are at a very critical juncture where in order for us to move forward effectively, the BVI has to work collectively to ensure it's an all-hands-on-deck experience. One of the things coming into consideration recently is the territory's leaders and the respective roles that they are playing, especially in this time. So today we saw it fit to sit down with the governor of the Virgin Islands, His Excellency Augustus Jaspert. So welcome, Governor Jaspert.
Thank you. Good morning, John.
All right, Governor Jaspert, we're living in strange times. Not only are we in the midst of the hurricane season, but we are battling a parallel, which happens to be the novel coronavirus pandemic. As a result, it really calls for everyone to unite and come together as it relates to our various roles. I want to speak to, firstly, your role as governor and as defined in the Constitution of the Virgin Islands for our viewers who may not be au fait with that.
Sure. Do you want me to talk a bit about it now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I said this before, I recommend everybody reads the Constitution. The Constitution
Right.
is the people's document. It's your Constitution, our Constitution, rather than, yes, it's legally agreed between the United Kingdom and the British Virgin Islands, but actually it's a Constitution that is about protecting the people of the territory, and it's about the rights and what people should expect in the territory. The choice that was made at the last Constitution sets out the 2007 order, sets out the roles of various leaders within the territory, including myself as governor. And as part of that, it sets out the constitutional responsibilities that I hold. Those include things like chairing cabinet. I don't have a vote in cabinet, but I chair cabinet. That is alongside the ministers. And then the Attorney General, who is also what's called an ex officio. Well, he's a member of Cabinet, but not a voting member of Cabinet as well. It also includes leading on, or my role or responsibility for leading on security, our internal security, our external affairs as a territory, the terms and conditions, the public service, the administration of justice. I don't make judicial decisions. We have rightly. The courts are independent. But making sure that the judicial system works well and works effectively is part of that, and is impartial and fair in the way that it operates. And then also a role which is about ensuring good governance in the territory, and that our systems and our processes are transparent and are accountable. And there's various different other constitutional roles within that the Constitution sets out. Areas such as the Auditor General, which is critical, the Complaints Commissioner, the Director of Public Prosecutions, other key posts which are vitally important for ensuring that there's transparency, accountability, fair justice, etc. Across the territory. Thank you.
All right, Governor Jaspert, like you said, it's very important for us to revisit the Constitution as well and familiarize ourselves with the contents of the Constitution, especially in this time. So I'm very happy that you were able to clarify that for our viewers as well. Now, Governor Jaspert, September is considered to be the peak of the hurricane season, and we know this time around it's a higher than average season. Are you satisfied as it relates to our preparations so far for in the instance there's a major hurricane?
Well, it's a good question, and I'm sure most of us spent yesterday reflecting a lot,
Yes.
reflecting on where we were, what we were doing, which bathroom we were hiding in during Irma, or remembering, sadly, those who we lost during that period and all of the suffering, the devastation that was reaped upon the territory. So whilst we reflect, it's also good to think about how ready we are now. I've said before, and it's really important that everybody thinks about how ready we are. As a government as a whole, this is obviously a top priority. Even whilst we deal with COVID, we don't switch off from making sure that we are ready as a territory for the height of the hurricane season. It is an active season. We thankfully we've been spared sort of impacts, but there are still weather systems out there, and it still is an active season. We go through at a government level what's called the readiness assessment, so making sure that all of our agencies, all government departments, all of the measures in place to ensure that we are ready should something come towards us or that may impact us. That includes all of the shelters, which we've reviewed and have checked for social distancing arrangements, modified where needed as well, and that list is up on the DDM site. It includes also contingency supplies and making sure that each sister island, I visited both Jos van Dijk and Virgin Gorda, Anegada I will do as well, to look at the arrangements that are in place there, and we pre-deployed supplies to each of those islands in the event that we may get cut off in the immediate aftermath. We've also looked at our communications and deployed communication systems across the territory as well. Just recently I opened what's called a satellite EOC, Satellite Emergency Operations Centre in the East End, so that and we pray this doesn't happen, but if we face a situation where we get impacted, and as we know in 2017, communications was a real problem, people not being able to inform each other of what was happening in different communities across the territory. We've now got both radio communications, satellite communications, and satellite emergency operations centres in key areas so that we can ensure that government is able to rebound quickly and help people in need if they need it. We've also got support just out in the region, and people would have seen in the 16th or a couple of weeks ago, in the 16th of August, we had the UK exercising a response if they needed, how they would get the ships in, how they would be able to support us in the immediate period after any impact. That's staying in the region, and it's here to support any of the territories in the Caribbean if we do get impacted. So I'm confident we've got arrangements in place, but we should never be complacent, and every individual, every business should make sure they are thinking through all of their preparations as well.
Right, so you just mentioned the shelters briefly, and I know this is one of the lingering concerns, especially in light of what happened in 2017. Do you think, as it stands right now, that we have enough shelters readily available to the public?
Well, I'm the kind of person who never likes to say enough, because I think we always need to keep working to improve things and to get more, and I'm never really happy until we've got everything at the highest level. What I do have confidence in is that we've ensured that there's shelters available in each community if needed, and that we thought through social distancing, we've put in extra generators where needed, and have got that list out on the DDM site. But it's also, as I said earlier, people need to look at their own homes and think through, am I fit for shelter there? What can I do to make it safer as well for any preparations as we still go through the height of this season?
All right, I know for some time, quite some time, we've been looking at legislation, finalizing adequate legislation. Just recently, the Department of Disaster Management Act was tabled in the House of Assembly. Can you tell us where we're at in that process and what is in the act to support the territory in the event of a disaster?
Yeah, well, we learned lessons in 2017, and one of those lessons was our legislative framework, how quickly we were able to respond or to be able to deal with some of the issues that emerged as we were dealing with the 2017 response from both Irma and Maria. So what the Act does is it increases our ability to react more quickly when needed. It includes measures such as a state of preparation powers, so that we can move into more formally shutdowns when we need to get people ready and get communities and businesses and government ready, and to be able to then enter into, if we do get impacted, the right legislative framework that helps us come out of any impact as quickly as possible. That act is, or bill, it's still in the House. It got asked to go into a committee stage, and I hope it comes out as soon as possible to get these important measures in place.
Absolutely. Governor Jaspert, yesterday, like you mentioned, marked our 3-year anniversary since the passage of Hurricanes Irma and Maria. I think we can all agree that it was one of the worst catastrophes documented in our history, if not possibly the worst. But as a territory, what progress do you think we have made since then? And I think personally, what has it taught you personally, that experience in itself? Because I know you were here through the entire experience, and you are here yet again in another parallel, which happens to be COVID-19. So what would you say that experience taught you?
Thank you. Well, first, just in terms of where the territory has come from since 2017. And this morning, as I took a brief bit of exercise before starting work, and you climbed up the back of McNamara Hill, and you look down, and you see Road Town, and you see the progress that we've made. And I remember 2017, walking out of a damaged government house and seeing almost total devastation. We can all recall the sights that we saw at that point. So we've made real progress, and we should be proud of what we've achieved. Individuals, businesses have bounced back, have stayed resilient, have got things going again. There's more work we need to do, and again, we shouldn't rest until we've really built back and challenge ourselves, particularly at a governmental level, to not just build back to where we were in 2017, but to build back even stronger, to build back with our infrastructure that is going to withstand any impacts with more reliability, to build back even greener, to build back in a way that we approach the future with strong confidence in terms of what we've managed to achieve. But that shouldn't dent from reflecting on and recognising the progress that the individuals, businesses we've all made, the public service has made to get us to the point we are today.
Okay.
At a personal level, I learned a lot during that time. I was new to the territory. I was thrown straight into it. I learned a lot about the resilience and the strength of people here, which is outstanding. And I was struck by the unity that people showed, the ability to not stay knocked down. It was a quick bounce back. It was a get up and to get to work and to want to really achieve together, making the territory strong again. And that's something that has really stayed with me throughout all of my time here.
And trust me, that is a shared sentiment. Now, Governor Jaspert, border security is a hot topic at the moment. And I know security falls directly under your portfolio, like you mentioned initially. So let's begin with internal security. Just yesterday, the Joint Task Force was able to raid a building, which of course resulted in us finding, I think it was 2 illegal immigrants. And I'm sure there's more out there that may be undetected. Also, post-lockdown, we've also seen a surge in crime, a lot of that in Virgin Gorda. What is being done internally to ramp up efforts against these kinds of activities by the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force and the Extended Arms?
Thank you. Well, first thing, we've built up the police force over the last few years, and it's important to recognise and applaud the work that they do, but also in border other agencies, the Immigration and Customs. I'll talk a bit about the work that's underway. We built up the police force, so from 2017 we have, with United Kingdom support, improved our firearms policing. So we've got more officers out there, more capable and better trained. We also increased what we call our public order, so those who are able to deal with specific situations. And we've enhanced the buildings and the network of policing that we have around the territory. So we entered this period with a stronger force than we did if we think back to 2017 and the challenges of the hurricane. COVID is different, but we entered this period with a stronger police force than we had in the past. That's something we need to keep on improving, and as we've seen, there are vulnerabilities. We've seen how potentially our border can be a vulnerability, and we need to enhance our efforts to ensure that we don't have that as a vulnerable area, particularly as we look at COVID-19 and the risks that people coming in or smuggling in may bring to this territory. But what we've done is we've formed a joint task force with the police, customs and borders through our National Security Council, the immigration as part of that as well, to ensure that we coordinate our resources that we have to get officers aligned to try to improve the approach to risks at the border as well. We've also, this is an area though we need everybody's support on again. Right. So the police there's a famous quote from somebody called Robert Peel, who was influential in setting up the policing in the United Kingdom in quite a while back. But he basically said that the public are the police and the police are the public. It relies on everybody. There's some people who have certain powers, i.e. police officers, who are vested with the powers of arrest, etc. But really it needs everybody to give information, to call out things that are wrong, to work with the police. In our current climate, we have the social monitoring, distancing monitoring task force, to abide by the regulations that we're putting out, whether that's curfew, whether it's arrangements around social distancing, etc. Policing is not just the job of the police, it's the job of all of us. And that's an important thing that, particularly in these times, we can see the risks of not all working together to keep all of us safe.
Absolutely. You announced earlier, Governor, that the UK's offer for military support of the border was rejected by our Premier of the Virgin Islands, Honourable Andrew Foy. Some have said, by you even mentioning that it's a breach of confidentiality as it relates to cabinet matters. Reflecting now, do you think that it was appropriate for you to bring that information to the public?
So there was no breach of confidentiality. NSC discussions themselves are confidential. The Premier himself said back in, I think it was May, about the UK, not wanting the UK military engagement. So that's what we were talking about when I mentioned what was there. At the time, back in April, May, I was working to try to look at options for how we can strengthen our border and not leave vulnerabilities there. The specifics I won't go into because they were National Security Council security issues. But what I wanted to do was to boost our local capabilities and to enhance the options that they have to better secure our borders. That's still an area that is important, and that's something that I will continue to work on.
All right, you just mentioned that it's still there, which means it possibly can come back to the table. Have you engaged the government in any further talks about providing that type of support since that incident?
Well, there was a specific set of proposals in the past, which I briefly mentioned, but as I said, I won't go into the details of those. What I want to do is we need to look at the risks that we face as a territory and what support we can get to close those risks. That's an active discussion, including with the National Security Council, of course. So I'll in due course be able to hopefully talk more about what we can do to reduce those risks. But it's really important as we all take huge sacrifices, and I know this is a hard time for businesses that are shut or for those who are out of work. This is not an easy period, and I don't underestimate that. And as we shut down the border in terms of or restrict entry through the border and people coming back on work permits now, that scheme opening, and having to go through the extra measures to keep us safe as we restrict internal arrangements. It's really, in terms of curfews, etc., it's really important that we don't leave any areas where people may be able to evade the hard checks on coming through the open border in terms of the airport route and bring risks into this territory.
Agreed, Governor Jaspert. Recently, Premier Foy also announced some new measures as it relates to the Joint Task Force. We also heard about the barges, and that has been at the top of our conversations. Are you satisfied that these arrangements in specific are effective in protecting our borders?
Well, as I said to an earlier discussion, I'm quite a hard person to satisfy. So until we've used every option and looked at all of the issues, this was part of what back in April, May, when we were looking at the range of support that could be provided to really enhance our border efforts, including with support from the United Kingdom. Those things are still important to ensure that we're keeping that border as secure as possible. On the barges specifically, that was a decision that the Premier took, and probably he's best to talk specifically about it. But what I do want to do is say, though, thank you to our immigration, to our customs, and to our police officers. They are working incredibly hard in difficult circumstances, enhancing their efforts on the waters, enhancing their efforts across the territory to keep us safe. And whilst we go into lockdowns, and they are out there every day trying to do all that they can to protect us. So I applaud everything that our officers across those agencies are doing.
Absolutely. Governor Jaspert, I know the offer on the table as it relates to the UK Navy's presence, but has the UK considered Coast Guard support, which might be more effective, some have said, for the British Virgin Islands? I know many local governments over the past years have asked for border support. More specifically, we heard them asking for satellite support, and we all know that smuggling is not a new issue. Additionally, recently we saw a boat within BVI waters with just about 7,000 pounds of fish, which is pretty much a clear indication that there's lots of illegal fishing happening within the territory. So have we considered maybe a Coast Guard support as opposed to the UK Navy or any other form of support that we've been seeing in recent times?
Thank you. Well, it's again, I won't go into all the specific details because these are security issues that we don't want to give people insights too much into the routes and both our gaps or our vulnerabilities as well. But this is what we do need to look at, and this is what the Joint Task Force is put forward, and is a comprehensive plan to look at how do we improve our security. That includes looking at our maritime assets, so looking at the boats that we have, looking at how we increase the surveillance of the waters, and then how we enforce better. We have a difficult border. We have a border that's very close to the US Virgin Islands, but also it's a very wide border in terms of our wide maritime border areas. And so it's a difficult challenge, but it's one that I'm confident we can work through, and I'm looking at all of the options that we have to support the work of our Joint Task Force and the agencies that are out there trying to enforce across that border. And they've had some good success. They've had some areas where they've caught people, and they've been able to, as you mentioned some of this, been able to enforce around specific operations. But these are areas that we will need to keep working on. It's not just an issue around COVID. COVID-19 highlights the risk even more, people coming across our border illegally or potentially illegally. But this is not, as you say, a new issue. We know there's been challenges in terms of some of those routes before, and this gives us an opportunity now to really enhance our operations.
All right, viewers, we're going to go to a really quick commercial break, but we're coming back with more on constitutional review and the governor, the relationship with the government of the Virgin Islands. So stick with us.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 Media. We are joined by Governor Jaspert. We're speaking about a lot of things. Right now, about to get into constitutional review. But before we head into that, Governor Jaspert, many have said, just reflecting on the years, that there seems to be some level of reluctance from the United Kingdom to provide very specifically financial support to the territory. We are in a time where our industries, like you mentioned, have been brought to a standstill. And there is need for monetary help. I think it went as far as someone saying, why not provide monetary help instead of sending the UK Navy ships so that we could essentially be trained to police ourselves and be able to take care of ourselves. Why not help with grants? And I can remember, for example, post-hurricane, the British Overseas Territory of Anguilla, they were provided with just about $60 million in grants. But the BVI was, quote unquote, considered too wealthy to receive that within the confines of the Constitution. But nevertheless, we saw Anguilla receiving just about $60 million from the Treasury of the United Kingdom at the time. Can you speak to that specific situation for us and why it's been somewhat of a challenge in assisting the BVI in that specific way?
Thank you. Well, first off, the approach that both the BVI and the UK wanted for the BVI was that the BVI itself should lead its recovery, specifically from Hurricane Irma, but I'll talk a bit about the ongoing support now during COVID-19. And that was a very clear position, and one I support. There should be BVI leading its own recovery plan, leading its own work to take the territory forward. As part of that, the United Kingdom then offered a loan guarantee so that the government itself would set out a plan. The UK would provide access to cheaper capital, money essentially, to get things moving faster, and to be able to use the underwriting of the UK to leveraging investment and development for the territory. At the same time, the United Kingdom also did provide quite substantial grants. Now, it's different in Anguilla, a very different decision taken by the governments there, but also a different financial situation. And BVI should be proud of the fact that it's been out of grant and aid for a very long period, over 25 years. But the UK did provide significant grants as well, about 17 million first off for early recovery projects. That was everything from cash payments to those most vulnerable, through to housing repairs, through to fixing key infrastructure. About 25% of our streetlights were put back up by UK-funded teams. Fixing and rebuilding water reservoirs on each of our sister islands, and a whole host of other areas, such as then a further set of donations or grants in about £10 million, which was about $13 million, to help the Recovery Development Agency and to ensure that the operational costs and technical expertise didn't become a burden on the territory. But also then further areas such as funding specific improvement projects, getting the administration complex on Jost van Dyke, for example, or the barracks on Virgin Gorda, or supporting Building Back Even Better, like a Halls of Justice project where the UK has committed money to, and I'm very excited that we can get that project moving. So there was, and there is, grants, but the most important thing is that here we have finances that are managed locally by the Minister of Finance. We enter this period with a pretty strong balance book, and I believe, and I know this is shared across Cabinet, that we should be making those decisions ourselves about how do we best support our population here. What is the best way to stimulate the economy? What is the best way to support people in need? The United Kingdom stands ready to support with assistance and particular areas where we can use and benefit from the strength and the assets that the United Kingdom has. We talked a bit about border security previously. It's not as simple as there's a ship or there's a dollar. The ship is in the region. Those kind of things are there to be used as effective for the territory. But also the United Kingdom have supported us here in BVI during the COVID period to help on our health response, where getting in equipment or getting in supplies is difficult when we're a small territory. Our purchasing power, when we're having to try to beat some big countries to get test kits or protective equipment, we've been supported by the United Kingdom, for example, over, I think, around 17,000 test kits donated by the United Kingdom, about $1.4 million worth of equipment, things like 5 ventilators. Even this week, a further 50,000 items of PPE, personal protective equipment, have been donated by the UK. So more the approach that I will always stand by is that when the UK gives support, it should be supporting our own direction here, rather than trying to take over any money or trying to direct where things are spent on, but actually working through a plan that says, here's the technical expertise, here's the support on the areas where we can add value to what is happening in BVI. And that's something that I think is standing us in good stead.
Governor Jaspert, the last time you sat down with us, you did mention in respect to financial support that what the UK is looking forward to is the BVI government coming forward essentially with a plan. Have you had talks with the Premier of the government of the day as it relates to that specific plan that we need to move forward at this time? Because one of the things we do know is you mentioned that we have a strong locally, we can maintain ourselves based on the monies that we have readily available to us under the government's coffers. But we've also heard that it's challenged at the moment, being that the government has to allocate a lot of those monies to various demands at the moment. For example, retrofitting the hospital, training medical professionals, and the list goes on. The monies are depleting as we speak, and we're not even sure how much longer the territory can sustain itself with no tourism sector at the moment and so forth. Have you been in conversation with the government of the day as it relates to that plan and what they would need from the United Kingdom as it relates to financial support?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, yes, the territory is, it's in a difficult period. Every country, every territory around the world faces a difficult period. These are not issues that are just for BVI. The government has put out, the Premier put out a economic stimulus package, and he, I'm sure, can give more details on that. The UK, as I talked before, offered a loan guarantee to be able to essentially save the BVI money when it needs to get money in to invest and to help with it. That was previously about development and stimulating the economy that way. It's really for the Premier to talk more about where BVI is on that. I won't get into discussions that I have individually with around the cabinet table. Again, those are confidential, but it is obviously a top priority that the territory not just deals with the immediate issues that we face, but also is able to set out with confidence, which I believe we should always have confidence here because we have an incredible population, we have incredible assets. We should look to the future with confidence and be able to set out those plans for how we ensure we get over these difficult times.
Absolutely. You mentioned the UK loan guarantee, and that is absolutely still a commodity still on the table for the British Virgin Islands. As it relates to that specifically, Governor Jaspert, the main economic pillars of the BVI, which happens to be tourism and the financial services sector, tourism has been brought to a standstill completely. The global economy, as a matter of fact, has been challenged as it relates to travel, but we are so dependent on the tourism industry. Financial services now is up against public registers, which we will get into later on in the interview. But some are of the opinion that this will penetrate the financial services sector in a negative way. We might lose some of our customers. Now, with a loan guarantee on the table, we want to be able to ensure that we can repay the loan. And at this time, there seems to be some challenges to both of our economic pillars. So would you say that there should be some concerns as it relates to our government considering signing into that loan guarantee at this moment?
Well, that's really for the Minister of Finance to talk about that, the Premier to talk about that. Just in terms of the loan guarantee, it was offered for a specific purpose, which was when we were it was November 2017 actually, it was first negotiated by then Premier Smith with the UK government. Nothing really changed from then. The conditions that I know lots has been talked about, but really all they were saying was there should be transparency, accountability, and proper procurement and project management of any money that's drawn out through that. Now that was for a specific purpose when we were dealing with the impact of the hurricanes. But at a more general level, whether it is BVI money, money from our own tax revenue, whether it is money we borrow from the CDB, which we have, or whether it's money we take from others, or whether it's money we take under any UK arrangements. For me, the same conditions in a way and the same approach is important, that we should have full transparency, we should have good accountability over that, and we should ensure that every single dollar we spend at the moment leads to a dollar, ideally even more so, a dollar impact on the ground and in our economy. So in terms of the plan going forward, that's really for the Premier to talk more about. But recognising where we are at the moment and recognising the challenges that we face, it's even more important that we have the strong measures in place to know that and ensure that every single dollar we spend as a government leads to that good outcome on the ground when any project or any spending delivers. And we know a bit from Auditor General reports and others that we've got a way to go on that. And I think that's something you would have heard me before talk about good governance or about transparency or about accountability. But those things are still really important, and particularly as we go through a time when finances are going to be strained. There's no denying that. No leader in any territory or country around the world could sit here and say it's all going to be perfect tomorrow, because it's not. The reality is finances are going to be strained. We're going to have to work hard to keep businesses going, and we're going to have to look how we ensure that as a government we make even more impact from every dollar that we take in from whatever source that is, and ensure that it delivers value for money on the ground.
Absolutely. Now, the government has passed a resolution, as we all know, for us to have constitutional reviewing of the 2007 Constitution. Lots of opinions are circulating where we need to be. And I know even on the last interview when you sat down with us, you did say very publicly that you do support it. Overall, Governor Jaspert, what should we be aiming for within this review?
Well, my position hasn't changed. I do support the Constitutional Review. I think it's a good thing, and we should regularly be doing that. A key thing to aim for, and this is a message to everyone out there, is remember it is the public's constitution. And it's quite easy. There'll be lots of technical talks at some point there'll be lots of discussions between different negotiating teams at some point. We're not at that stage yet. But really, the people should think through, and communities should think through, what do we want? What do we want as a territory, and how do we get this? How do we get this in the place that we want it to be? There's lots of talk, I know, about various different roles within the Constitution. For me, I think that the territory should always be on a journey of improving itself, becoming more self-determining as it wishes. And that requires, in a way, looking hard at some of the various different powers, but also looking at what we need in place to be able to do that. How do we build up some of those institutions of transparency and accountability, good governance that I've talked about? How do we make sure that they are doing lots of the work, rather than people always pointing a finger at the governor or somewhere else and saying, what are you doing? But actually, these are things that we should have our own institutions operating at the highest level as well. So I think there's a lot to get into. I hope there's a very lively public dialogue and discussion around it. And I hope that when people look at the Constitution, they think, how do we want to operate as a territory, and where do we want to go, and use that to help drive the discussions that will be had on it.
All right. Do you think that now is the time for a more progressive approach as it relates to, because you did mention a second ago that we need to be more accountable for ourselves, which means that we need a stronger walk to autonomy. Do you think then that the government should assume more constitutional responsibilities within this reform?
Well, really, it's a debate that will need to be had as part of the constitutional review discussions. I think there's more we can do to build up as I said, our own institutions of responsibility in a way, and to bolster those. And I hope that happens as part of this work. But I'm not going to speculate at the moment on particular points, because it's very, very early days. And the first step really is for the public to get engaged and to have that dialogue about their understanding and points that should be considered as we go forward.
All right, so we touched on this a little bit earlier. Public registers. Governor Jaspert, December 2020 is quickly approaching, and the BVI is yet to declare that they will have public registers, while other overseas territories as well as crown dependencies have done so. Do you think that this could be damaging for the BVI?
Well, I think there's a risk of that, to be honest. Others will be better placed than me to talk through about the financial services industry, but there's a risk for me that BVI becomes an outlier rather than being the one at the front of the pack. And we have successfully, throughout our years in financial services, shown that we are confident, we are innovative, that we get ahead of global trends rather than wait until the end of global trends. And that's served us well in the last 25 years or more of our financial services industry. Every other inhabited overseas territory, and as you said, the Crown dependencies as well, has moved to a position of saying they will put in place public registers themselves. And it links a little bit to the debate about self-determination as well, that the other places have said, actually, this is an issue for us. We will look at it. We will look at what we need to put in place. We're not going to wait to be told by someone else what the design or what it may need to look like. BVI is the only one that hasn't at this moment done that, and there's it's something that is I know, a hot topic, and one that I hope is looked at over the next weeks and months as we go forward on this, because this is about a global approach and a way forward, which much of the EU is moving towards. As you said, the other territories have as well. And for BVI, from my perspective, I want BVI to stay at the top of the list in terms of our success in financial services industry, and ensure that we are leading from the front as we have done so successfully in the past.
All right. As it relates to the criteria so far, do you think that the BVI has done a good job at meeting the requirements? For example, we can look at the BOSS system, where lots of entities internationally have agreed that the BVI has been doing what it needs to do as it relates to being able to relay and exchange real-time information regarding these public registers. Would you agree that we are on a good path as it relates to that?
Yeah, so exactly as you say. So, and it links to what I was saying earlier. We've proven when global positions change, and this is a global industry, financial services, when global positions change, we've shown that we can actually look at ourselves, look at what we do, and become the best in class. And I think, I'm no assessor of this, but from everything I hear, the BOSS system is one of the best that's out there, and we should be very proud of what we've achieved with that. That gives law enforcement the ability to get information. The global movement has moved and will keep on developing and will keep on moving. And there's further requests for more transparency with appropriate safeguards around that. And I think we can look at developing those. But as you say, we've proven we can take the changing world situations on this global industry. We can devise the best in class, and then we can be confident in that. And I hope we look at all of the issues relating to financial services in that same way.
All right, the idea of the registers, if we can recall, I think it was introduced right after Hurricane Irma in 2017. Now, like we mentioned before, today we are facing a new parallel, Governor Jaspert, which happens to be COVID-19. And it has really devastated the global economy, especially our travel tourism. Our tourism industry, specifically in the BVI, has been crippled. And so with financial services being the only clutch the BVI can depend on at this moment, do you think that 2020 is still the right time for us to sign on for the public registers, considering all these circumstances? Do you think it's the right time for us to push forward with that?
Well, what the other territories have done, and the Crown dependencies, in line with what a lot of Europe, the EU, have done as well, is actually to say we'll do it later in 2023, and we'll do it on our terms in 2023 as well. And I think that's something that I know is part of the considerations here. But really, that's for the Premier to talk more about the specific position that BVI wishes to take. More at a wider level across the territory, we, as you mentioned, about the challenges in our particularly our tourism industry. And that is something that is really, really important, that we look ahead and we can think about how do we support that industry, because we have incredible assets here, and we need to ensure that that we support people going into, as we come out of this hurricane season, but going into the next season, we try to think ahead on how we can manage COVID and move to a position where we are able to keep our industries in a strong position.
All right, we touched on this lightly the last time, but I just wanted to get into this a bit more. Now, we all know since the murder of Mr. George Floyd in the United States, racism around the world has been under attack. I mean, some persons have referenced the fact that planters, which benefited from slavery, were being repaid by the UK government up until, I think it was 2015. But there are similar concerns about the descendants of those enslaved. Do you think that the descendants of the enslaved should also be compensated? Because I do know as well that certain entities within the United Kingdom would have apologized for their roles. For example, the Lloyds and so on. Even the Prime Minister has said publicly that, you know, he apologized for the slave trade up until, I think it was 1807. But the fact remains that slavery continued in the BVI up until, I think it was 1834. Do you think an apology is warranted? And again, do you think those descendants of the enslaved should be compensated?
Well, I think it was a horrific period in world history, in British history, and in a disgusting approach was taken in terms of how people were treated less than people, and I think that should never be forgotten. And I think you mentioned the ongoing focus now, highlighted by events in the US about tackling racism and all forms of racism, and it's an important reminder that we should never stop thinking about what are we doing and how do we ensure that we are actively breaking down any racism that there is. In terms of the past, and as I said, that was a horrific period. It's an issue that I think is one that is right to recognise and to think through in terms of ensuring that we keep on tackling and challenging any injustices. In terms of specifically on reparations, as you talked about, I know that's put forward a lot. That's not a position that the United Kingdom has taken. That's not something that here is in the position. But I think it is always worth ensuring that we learn the lessons from the past and we reflect on what a horrific period in world history that was.
What do you think about changing the name of Sir Francis Drake Channel, considering his ties to the slave trade?
To be honest, I haven't thought about it. It's not a topic that's, in terms of that particular channel, that's crossed my mind. I think, though, at a general level, personally, I think there's lots of things that we could look at, particular names, particular places, particular buildings or whatever they are, and there's much movement in many places around statues and other symbols. I think it's really important that people are taught the history and taught to understand and to, whether something is specific name change, actually maybe takes it away, rather than actually explaining and talking through and making sure that people understand what these various different symbols, names, places meant, and understanding the full history around them.
All right, Governor Jaspert, as we begin to wrap up, you have been with us for over 3 years. You've experienced the hurricanes, like we mentioned. Now you're walking with us through this pandemic. But you've also seen the BVI, the glorious parts of it, of course, when our economy is thriving as well. Are you proud, holistically, are you proud of what you've been able to accomplish thus far as the governor of the Virgin Islands?
Well, it's not really for me to say. I'll let others judge me rather than judge myself. I'm proud of the people I've seen and the hard work across our public service. I'm proud of the communities here and the resilience they've shown, the support that they've given, the desire to keep on making this territory better. I'm proud of the connections that have been made, and I every now and then get messages from people about various issues in the community, but also in terms of thoughts about where the territory can go. And I stand by that this is a fantastic territory. We've had tough years. My time here hasn't been a quiet period for the territory, but whilst we deal with the current COVID issues, whilst we still recover fully from Irma, I'm proud that we, as a territory, still have so much strength that we can build on in the future.
Well spoken, well spoken. Would you agree that a functional relationship between the governor and the government of the Virgin Islands is critical to the development of our territory, especially at this time?
Yes, I mean, in a way, this hasn't changed I remember when I was reflecting back on this, because this also was relatively recently my anniversary of arriving here 3 years and a bit ago. That on my first speech, when I was sworn in, I talked about I intend to operate with two things. One will always be my driving principles of support and operating in partnership. Now, support to the people of this territory, that's the only thing that drives me to do what is in the best interests of the people of this territory, and that's what gets me out of bed every morning, thinking if there's any way I can help make a difference or make things better, or to help navigate through these tricky waters that we have at the moment. And to work in partnership, and that is critical, to work in partnership with the government, the elected government, to work in partnership with our public service, but also to work in partnership with the community as well. And nothing really for me has changed my approach on that, and I stand by that those are still important. The governor shouldn't be separate from government. The governor is constitutionally head of government and is holds constitutional powers within government as well. And that partnership is very important to me.
All right, and with that said, would you say that you're satisfied with the relationship between yourself and Honourable Foy at this time?
Well, I'm not going to comment on individual relationships. I work with anyone and will drive forward work with anyone in the support of the best interests of the people of the territory. As I said, that's the only thing that matters to me.
All right, Governor Jaspert, as we begin to wrap up, what would you like to say in parting with the viewers, of course, all the residents here in the British Virgin Islands?
Thank you. Well, a few things which, just to capture some of the themes that we've talked about actually in this interview this morning. First off, it's a difficult period, and we're currently in the middle of a second lockdown period in terms of the curfew that is restrictive, I know, both for businesses, for individuals, and for how we operate in a territory. This will succeed, and we will succeed, on the basis of everybody out there. How well we adapt to managing with COVID. I said before, we can't, at the moment, sadly, think we'll be completely COVID-free or the world will be COVID-free at any particular point. We hope a vaccine comes along, we hope that this pandemic ends, but we've got to adapt to living with it, working with it, and suppressing it, managing it down. And that requires everybody to practice all of the things that we've been talking about so much. Good hygiene, wearing a face mask, practicing social distance. The more and more confident we get with doing those things, the more and more confident we get that we can manage living with the risk of COVID, whilst we also, our excellent health teams, trace people, isolate people, test people, and reduce the risk of any infection spread. But really it's to say thank you to everyone for all of the sacrifices that everyone's making, and to ask you to keep doing it, and to keep practicing and keep getting into this environment where we grow our confidence of being able to manage with the risk of COVID whilst we reduce it as much as possible. The second message, just very briefly, is on hurricane preparedness. And whilst we deal with the multiple things and to deal with COVID-19, deal with all of the hardships that we face, don't forget to keep monitoring the updates from DDM. Don't forget to look at your own hurricane preparedness and look out for people. This is a period where my children just started back at school, for example. Yes. One of the things that, for me, most important is, whilst we're all in difficult situations, we all may be working virtually or not connecting, but it's a period of being united and kind to people more than ever, where, get prepared, do all of the things that we kind of give out bossy messages, but actually everybody is an individual, and you can play a role in supporting an individual who may be struggling at the moment, whether that is through the hardship that we're facing, whether it's through mental health or the resilience of all these trying times, and approaching things in that kind and united and supportive way, which I've seen so much here, is something I think we should hold on to. It's not a time for dividing across our different communities or for pointing fingers across different communities. It's a time for saying we all live in a beautiful place. We all call this place our home, let's treat everyone like it's our home, and let's all support each other. Thank you.
And that is an excellent note for us to end on, Governor Jaspert. I want to thank you so much for making time and really seeing this as a priority to come before the people, speaking to your various portfolios and your role, especially within this time. So we want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Always good to talk.
All right, viewers, this has been an exclusive with the Governor of the Virgin Islands, His Excellency Augustus Jaspert. And this is the intention here at 284 Media, to ensure that you, our valued viewers, are well informed, especially in the midst of this hurricane season, as well as the parallel of fighting this COVID-19 pandemic. We'll continue to bring you these discussions, and we hope that you continue to stick with us. My name is Javon Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us.